Hey there, welcome to the Focus Podcast with Taralee. This is the place where we talk about real life, real relationships, and how to grow through it all. If you're looking for simple mindset shifts, better communication, and deeper connections, you're in the right spot. Let's dive in. Welcome back to the Focus Podcast. I'm Taralee, and today I am joined by a special guest, Laura Ollinger. She is a teen and parent well-being coach, and she's also a speaker, and she's also a host of the Positively Healthy Mom podcast. And like me, Laura is passionate about helping families strengthen their communication and build resilience and create healthier habits at home. So Laura, welcome. And instead of me sharing your entire story, I would love for you to start off by telling us a little bit about your story and what you do and your work with parents and teens.
Yeah, thanks so much. I'm so excited to be here today. And I always love to collaborate with somebody to, share ideas and share thoughts. So yes, I'm a teen and parent well-being coach. And my background kind of degree wise is I got a master's degree in my 40s as an adult. I have a master's in health and wellness education. And simultaneously, while I was doing that, I was crazy enough to also get a functional medicine health coaching certification. So I am a national board certified health and wellness coach. And then additionally, I added kind of the life coaching part on it. So that way I kind of like have all my bases covered. And so I started working with teens and parents almost 5 years ago now. And people say, how did you get into that? And it's just real simple. My daughter she actually had anxiety in elementary school. And so I honestly wasn't really sure how to handle it. So we talked to a pediatrician, went to a counselor, kind of did all the things. And still as the mom, I wanted to just educate myself and kind of learn how to deal with that. And so I thought, okay, that's what I'm doing. And then shortly after that, my nephew, who was 20 at the time, took his own life. And that is when, and every time I say that, which is very frequently, it's still, it hits every time. I just thought, it was just this like very strong wake up call. It just became very clear to me that I wanted to like take the new degree and the new coaching certifications and kind of put all my attention on teenagers specifically, because that's also right when, social media had already been around, but more of the studies and more of the research had started coming out about kind of the difficulties and challenges it's causing with mental health in teenagers. And that's not to say, that was the reason for my nephew or anything like that, but it just simultaneously was all happening at the same time. And so that's kind of where I am. And then on top of that, now, so I have 4 children and now they're grown up in teenage world. So I have a senior in high school, a sophomore, a freshman, and a 7th grader. So kind of right in those years of lots of parenting required, but also lots of parenting skills and self-control required. Just kind of like finding the balance and letting them be them and also kind of maintaining those boundaries at the same time.
I love it. That you and I share very similar stories. I think I kind of started back into it when my daughter was struggling with anxiety and started researching human behavior. And then I went back to school in my 40s also. Nice. Still finishing up. I'm getting my degree in marriage and family therapy and wrapping that up now that I'm 50. It's taken me some time, but little by little. But and then I also have a coaching business, and I've worked with parents and teens, and I work with couples also and individuals. But kind of the same, I just am amazed at the human brain and the thoughts and things. And so I know one of the things when I was preparing for this interview, I learned about you was about your background in elite neuroencoding specialist. Yes. That caught my attention because it goes a lot with my focus framework. But tell me a little bit about that, because that is really fascinating to me. I kind of went down a little rabbit hole looking into that a lot more because it's very similar to what I teach, but I didn't know anything about that.
Yeah. So I joined that institute on the ground floor when they were just getting started. It was originally called the Brain Revolution. And so I'm not sure if you or your listeners are familiar with Dr. Daniel Amen. He's a really well-known, you can find him on Instagram, find him everywhere, psychiatrist. And so he's the one that kind of is very outward about how mental illness and mental health issues aren't what we think they are. They're more of a brain issue. Like if we think of it as like a broken arm, right? It's a health issue. And so much can be kind of treated or kind of improved by taking care of ourselves physically. And so that was combined at the same time with the Neuroencoding Institute. So the Brain Revolution kind of had two segments to it. And the Neuroencoding Institute was founded by Joseph McClendon III, who is just this amazing guy. And his background is neuropsychology. And so his kind of thought was taking everything he's learned, which has been 40 years, he's been in partnership with Tony Robbins. I'm sure most people know the kind of godfather of coaching itself. And he worked with him side by side. They wrote a book together. And so Joseph created this to be able to teach just anyone how to become a coach and what his methods are. So he's combined all different things together, all different modalities. He uses a lot of neuro-linguistic programming. And so that's kind of what neuroencoding is about. There's a kind of a simple framework where it's, see whatever the bad pattern is that we want to stop. We interrupt that pattern. We replace it with a better pattern or a newer pattern that would be more helpful to us. And then we celebrate. And that kind of releases dopamine in our brain, which reinforces the cycle. And so it's all about changing our behavior and then wiring it into our nervous system so that we can kind of default to because if you do that over and over and over again, and we create those anchors, then we default to a higher or better version of ourselves.
That I love it so much. This is like putting science behind kind of what I created my focus framework about. The focus, my dad used to say, my dad was a marriage and family therapist, and he used to say, what you focus on expands. And so
Yes.
that's why I have my focus podcast. That's what my kind of, framework is around, where focus, each letter stands for facts first, own your thoughts, choose your feelings, understand your actions, and shape your results. So how
Yes.
our thoughts create our feelings that lead to our behavior that ultimately shapes our results. And so that's kind of what, the science behind this. I think I'm going to dive even deeper on my own, researching a lot of this that you kind of do and talk about and share too, because it aligns with a lot of the stuff that I do. But I'm sure, I don't know if everyone's as interested in the brain stuff as I am, but I know that there's a lot of, so I had a whole list of like questions for you, but I know there were several things that I think I had sent you an email to talk about. So tell us a little bit about what you do and how you help teens and parents. And then I'm going to link everything that you tell us in our show notes, so people don't have to like stop what they're doing and write it down, because we're going to link it all. But tell us a little bit about what you do with parents and teens, because you help both. And I love that.
Yeah. And it's funny because kind of the typical type person that will come to me, request a consultation is a parent who typically has a daughter. I have worked with many boys as well. But my logo is all pink. And so people, it's very girly, but, I do have kind of the blue in there as well. But anyway, it's usually something related to social anxiety, kind of self-doubt, not doing well with either social kind of, that friendship network, or it's kind of like the stress of just school and that pressure to perform. We know how girls are, right? They really like to be high. I know my girls are both kind of like high achievers. They feel really driven to perform, and that kind of fear and worry about the future and what will their future hold? What will they do? And so, between extracurriculars, the academics, the social life, and then now we add social media to the mix. And we have a lot of stressed out teenagers. I have not yet to find one teenager that has not said they're stressed out. In fact, when I go and I speak to groups, I always just ask them, and they're like, yeah, every single one right away. Stress, do you feel, and I'm not talking about clinical anxiety, like an anxiety disorder, although sometimes, it can be. But when I go into a room, how many of you have the feelings of anxiousness or anxiety? Oh, every single one. And including the boys, they feel that a lot of these feelings too. They have different ways of, kind of stopping the feelings or masking the feelings or coping with the feelings in different ways. But anyway, so people will come to me and they say, hey, I have this stressed out teenager. can you kind of basically fix them? That's not what they say, but it's that's the message. And I say yes. And I've learned that how important it is to involve the parents in that process. And so I started out really including the parents in the process. And I found that a lot of them just didn't want to be. And I get that because I am a very busy mom myself. And so if I have an appointment set up for one of my kids, I love it now that my two older kids can drive. They can take themselves to the doctor, the dermatologist, or the dentist, or the orthodontist, right? So once our kids start getting that independence, we kind of want them to be able to do things on their own and handle it on their own. And so that I did get a lot of pushback. And so for a while I said, okay, fine. The parents don't want to talk to me. That's okay. And I just found that coaching the teenagers, although it was, fairly successful, I just knew there was still that missing ingredient and that missing piece. And I realize now even more just as a mom personally and just working in this field and literally spending every kind of waking minute either learning about it, reading more books, listening to more podcasts. Like I'm in this constant, evolution of learning and personal growth myself. And I just now know more than ever that the parent's job is so crucial. It is so vital. And so that's where I start to include the parents. And so I do bring them in and we talk about, initially confidentiality because I do need the teenager to trust me. They need to feel safe with me, someone that's not their parent. And so we just kind of set up that ahead of time that, look, I am not going to tell you what your teenager said to me, but here are some parenting skills that could be helpful. Here are some ways you can talk to your teenager that might be helpful. And the only time I break that is if I ask the teenager in advance, is it okay if I talk to your parent? Right. And, most of the time they say yes. And there are a few kind of touchy subjects. And I say, no problem. We'll not mention that whatsoever. And we still just focus on those parenting skills. And then the last piece, which is really one of my favorites, is conflict resolution. And so there are times it's usually mother-daughter. I have had a father-daughter situation where there's just a lot of conflict because there's miscommunication. And so I'll actually bring them in on a session together. And it's probably very similar to what you're doing with, couples, but we're really just taking this neutral role. We're holding space. We're allowing each person to share. And where I come in is I serve as that translator. And so I hear what the teenager's saying, and I help the parent understand what it is that the parent really need or teenager really needs or wants, or what they're trying to express, and then kind of vice versa. So that way we're on a win-win, right? The goal is win-win, and we're trying to get on the same page. And so, so that's what I do. And it's really fun. I love it. All my clients just feel, every time I'm with them, I just feel so excited to be and honored, honestly, to be able to have that role in their lives.
Yeah, I love it. That's what I feel the same thing. I think I started out with, coaching and helping parents, but I think a lot of times I found that they wanted me to fix their kid. They saw their kid was the problem. Well, fixed them. They're the problem. Why are you coaching me? Well, it's like, we can't change everybody else. We can only change ourselves. We can only change how we think about them. And our relationship is what we think about them. It's in our control. And that's what I kind of have helped. And, in coaching some of the teens that I have, that it's been just kind of helping them be patient with your parents, like kind of helping them see their side of it too, I think is a lot of that. But I do know, like you said, teens are facing a lot of stress and pressure. And for a lot of years when my kids were in school, I was a substitute teacher, and I found that I loved being in the high schools, and I was in the high school all the time. And then when COVID hit, I was actually at an elementary school as an office manager, and I saw just the anxiety and just the change in behavior of kids and coming out of it and stuff. And at the time I was living in Colorado, and everything shut down quite a lot. And so, and I had two still in high school at the time. And so just seeing all that, that's where I was like, I'm going back to school. Like, I am getting my degree. I am going to finish this and get so that I can help these kids, because I wanted to know, how can I serve these kids better? How can I, get the knowledge myself in helping these kids? And I've learned so much, and I continue to learn so much, and talking to people like you and learning more about some of these things and listening to podcasts. I'm constantly learning, and I love some of these things that you are talking about, and on your website that we'll link to, you have a lot of resources and a lot of good information on there too, and your podcast and stuff. Um, what are the most common misconceptions that you think parents hold about their teens' behavior or their stress or emotional resistance?
Ooh, that's such a great question, man. It's so there's a lot there. Um, well, the kind of there's always that spectrum in my mind, right? Like, and so
Mhm.
I feel like in the worst case scenarios, it's the really unhealthy version of it is that their child is bad.
Mhm.
There's a problem with them. They're trouble, right? They're lazy. I hear that one a lot. They're disorganized. They're not motivated. All those beliefs, and so that's. And sorry, what was the question again? Because I feel like I
What
got.
do you think the most common misconceptions that parents hold about their
Yeah.
teens, like their behavior, their stress, their emotion resilience that you see?
Yes, yes. So yes, okay, I'm on the right track now. So
Yeah.
yeah, and kind of like the coping behaviors, because like just like you,
Hmm.
the way I say it, my version of what your focus is just think, feel, do, have. And so when people are looking at the do, that's where a lot of times we're getting those unhealthy coping behaviors where it's using substances, vaping, marijuana, all the things, drinking, self-harm, scrolling. Oh my gosh, that's one that parents love to. It's such a misconception because kids do spend a lot of time on their phone, and so I feel that is a misconception in a way because a lot of times it's a coping mechanism. It's to deal with the stress that they feel, and so it's not that they're parents love to say, oh, my kid's so addicted to their phone and da, da, da. And yes, maybe there is an addiction. Like there can be, like I also have a certification in digital well-being through the Consciously Digital Institute. And so like we had to learn about that. And like sometimes there truly can be a technology addiction, but rarely is it a true addiction. There are like addictive properties and addictive qualities to the way the apps are designed and the dopamine hits that we get. And we just,
Hmm.
we have such short attention spans now. And so that's where I feel like there is a lot of that misconception that it's somehow the teenager's fault that they are
Yeah.
spending a lot of time on that, or that there's something wrong with their teenager. But kind of other, we could kind of go into all those categories of their life and figure kind of like dissect like why is it that the teenager is a problem. And so that's where I even had a conversation recently with so my sister is a high school teacher, and they had phones up in school until just recently. In Missouri, where I'm from, it's illegal now, just like it is now in Texas. And so she was describing to another family member of ours how the kids now just have these kind of like almost like blank stares on their face because they don't have their devices in class. They're just kind of blankly staring as my sister is teaching. And the kind of message I was getting from this other family member was that somehow the teenagers are, again, there's something like wrong with them. Like oh, those kids, the kids these days, oh my gosh, what is wrong with them? And I kind of said, well, let's take a step back. Those kids did not invent cell phones. They most likely did not buy their own cell phone. They certainly didn't design the apps that they were using. And they certainly weren't the ones that created the rules in the school that allowed them to have them. They certainly weren't the ones that created the rules at home that were allowed to have them. And now we take them away and kids are acting a little different. And we're like, what's wrong with the kids? Well, what's wrong with the kids was everything that led up to that allowed them to get to that point.
Yeah, I agree. That is so true. And I think if you actually spend time with kids and you realize that we're okay, like they're good. These kids, the next generation, we're going to be fine. I know sometimes they get a bad rap for things, but every time I get to work with the youth and through my church and stuff, and anytime I get to go and hang out with them, like tonight I get to go, we're playing capture the flag and stuff this evening
Yeah,
with
it's
them, and
Wednesday. Yep. Yep.
and I love it. And so I get to go do that. And after I leave there, I feel confident about our future because these are good kids. Like they're just really good kids. What emotional regulation tools or practices do you find most reliable for teens when they're feeling stressful,
Yes.
feeling the stress?
Yeah, yeah. So I always think I'm a visual learner. And so I use a lot of visuals with my clients. And I just show them the polyvagal ladder, which is
Oh
just
yeah.
that really simple. It's so easy to remember. It's just like a stoplight. So red is on top, yellow's in the middle, green's on the bottom. And so green is when we're feeling calm and connected. That's when we're able to be creative, able to let our mind wander, able to solve problems, able to communicate really well. And that's that upper thinking of the brain that is really kind of like the part that makes us most kind of civilized humans. uh,
Yeah.
and then there's the yellow is the next, and that's the fight or flight response. So that's the anxiety. And when we think of a teen, or when we think of a toddler in or baby in the grocery store that's screaming their head off, right? Like that's the part, that's where they are at in their nervous system. They're very activated. And then when you get to the top, which is red, that is where it's like shut down. That's the freeze response. There's also the fawn, which, but I don't need to go into that nuance. So
Yeah.
fight or squeeze. But and so I explained to this, like when you feel so overwhelmed and you are just kind of like don't know what else to do, that explains the feelings. And again, not a clinical depression like diagnosis, but feelings of sadness, feelings of overwhelm, feelings of depression. And so once they understand kind of like how it works, and you can't get from red to green, you have to go back through the yellow. And the thing is, throughout the day, we're all going in and out of this, right? Like if we're stuck in traffic, we're more in the yellow. If we're hanging out at night, we're more in the green, right? And it's not that yellow is bad. We talk about how we need a little bit of stress. Like a little bit of stress is healthy. And so operating right between that green and yellow, that's what represents like play, like playing games, playing sports, playing capture the flag, right? You need a little bit of energy to kind of get that competition mode going. And so when we kind of understand what it is that we're dealing with, and then we talk about regulating, I'm actually added to the list of certifications, but I'm certified in the HeartMath Institute in stress, anxiety, and self-regulation. And so
Oh wow.
that is talking about the intelligence of the heart. And it's so cool to learn about this. Again, I feel like we're on the same page because we both are just obsessed with learning. I just say I'm a nerd because I love to learn in a joking way, but there's actually more connections between the heart and the brain than the other way around. And so the heart is actually kind of like a second brain. A lot of people say the gut is too, but it has its own intelligence, which sounds crazy. There's actually like brain type cells in the heart. And so that's kind of what that practice represents. And so we focus our breathing on the area of the heart, and they have about 5 different breathing techniques that are all very similar. But the idea is to just shift from whatever state we're in, which is that yellow, the stress, the overwhelm, whatever that might be, and to pick a target of what it is that we want to get to. So we want to feel calm. We want to feel at ease. We want to feel at peace, right? These words are all similar, but certain words resonate better with certain people. So they pick their target. And so we literally just breathe the feeling of peace, or whatever the word is, just breathe the feeling of peace. And your body knows what to do, right? Like it can remember a time when you felt peaceful in the past. And so the idea is that you're able to recall that, you're able to like activate that in your body, and you just sit with it. And it's literally a practice, because it's one of those things where the more frequently you do it, the better you get at it. And the more kind of quickly you can get into that heart-brain coherence. And so, yeah, that's one of the many tools, but it's just similar to a lot of just that mindfulness meditation that a lot of people are using. But then I love how you have frameworks for things. So it's like, of course, I want to put that into like another framework. Another kind of thought I have is just it's always so important to take that pause, right? So how do we know to do that mindfulness breathing activity if we don't even take the moment, right? And so we could get all into that. Like, I'd love to kind of hear how, like what your thoughts are, because I could just go on and on.
Oh, I love everything that you're saying. I'm like, okay, well, that's exactly my coaching business is called Peaceful Heart Journey. And a lot of it has to do with that. Like I have reasons I picked some of these things and reasons I picked my logo with the tree and the roots that go all the way to the ground. And, there's different things that I don't know that I've actually shared out with people, but they're reasons to me. But when you're talking about how the brain and the heart and that connect, I'm like, yeah, that's exactly why I chose because I do teach a lot about mindfulness and how our thoughts and all that, but it does connect to our heart and it does connect to the peace and the calm because we're empowered. Like it to me, it's empowering to know that I have that control over those my thoughts and how I feel and all of that by the thoughts I choose. I may not have the control over a circumstance. When, my daughter a year ago was diagnosed with cancer, I wish I could have taken that away. That's where I kind of realized I don't have control over this. Wait a minute. I am used to being able to fix things and help and do these things. And, one of those things that instead of, like you said, going from green to red or from red to green, we've got to go through the yellow. That kind of made me think of that where, the only way through it is through it. I don't know if you've heard that before. The only way through it
Yeah.
is through it. But that's kind of what we had to kind of get through. But our experience through that can be awful and horrible. And because there was a lot of stuff thrown at us the night that she was admitted, the first time we met with the oncologist, she was admitted to the hospital that very moment. And we had to go to the hospital. And that night, Hurricane Helene hit us really hard here. All these things were like, oh my gosh, like we could be feeling just awful, desperate, whatever. But she and I very consciously and intentionally chose thoughts that helped us feel more empowered and more in control, even though we were completely not in control with
Yeah.
anything at the moment. We could feel awful and horrible in during that time, or we could feel peaceful, and we, had to work through all of that. But that's where I feel like this work really came to me and it grounded me in everything that it doesn't matter what we're going through, that we are the ones that shape the results of what we're going through. We are the ones that get to choose no matter what the circumstance is. So that's kind of what I love about a lot of, these things that you were just saying too. And I may have gotten off a little bit on that a little bit, but um, so I do have a list of questions, but now I think I may have like detoured us a little bit here. Um, so what, so you also focus on parent well-being. And so what are like some of what are the internal stories or blind spots that you think many parents carry?
Ooh, I love that question. Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
That's so deep, man. So, sorry, I'm having a big reaction because this is just something I've been kind of just processing a lot myself lately. So, to kind of simplify it, I feel that our blind spots are, well, in a clinic. Okay, hold on. We were kids once, right? We were parented once, and there were some good things about that probably. And there were also some unhealthy or kind of, again, I don't want to go back to the word bad, but unhealthy, not desirable, not ideal things about the way we were parented in most cases, right? There are some amazing stories like, oh my gosh, sounds amazing. But most of us, not the case. And so what happens is and you probably are learning about this in your degree, where we carry that into our future relationships. And so it comes out in, as you know, like a marriage, like those things that are not healed. But then
Attachment styles and yep.
all the stuff. But then it also comes out in our parenting. And so all those kind of childhood wounds or things that have not yet been healed end up coming out. And we can say all day long, I'll never be like my mom. I'll never be like my mom. I'll never be like my mom. And then you find yourself, oh my gosh, this was just like my mom, right? Or just maybe you don't even honestly, consciously know it, but we just pick up these things, whether we want to or not. And so I feel the reason why I'm so passionate about it is because part of like what drives me in just my work, and again, my personal life and my work overlap so much. So sometimes it's just one and the same, is to really heal the parents so that those things don't get passed down, or at least to a minimized degree, that it's just not as severe. So did that answer your question? Did that kind of resonate?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I love that because I think I have a cousin who has a podcast, and I'll plug it here for him. It's called Generational Health, and he talks about just different it's really interesting. You'll have to go check it out. But he kind of talks about some of this stuff, the generational things, and not just things that we pass down emotionally, but physically too. So his talks a lot about that. But I love what you said about that. So what do you think is one area in your work that feels misunderstood or underexplored, and something that you wish more parents asked you about?
I feel I feel like we're are right on that topic already, because so many parents don't think or necessarily want to address that. And I'm not a therapist, right? So I don't as much tell me about your childhood, right? Like I don't ask a lot of those historical questions, but I do ask. I wish that my adult parent clients would be okay with doing some exploration work on their own. And I have a course that's on my website called Cracking the Parent Code. There's 8 modules, and the very first module is self-awareness. And so it's like building that self-awareness, because I think that answers actually both questions at the same time. The last one and the current one is that's the blind spot, right? They don't know what they don't know about themselves. And so therefore, that's what's happening. But they don't understand it. And that's why they're saying, fix my child, because they don't realize it's actually something that they're doing as well. Not to blame the parent for everything, but like there's a role, there's like a place in that. And so that would be probably my number 1. And my number 2, something that I feel, I guess, frustrated, is a little bit more also related to the physical health side, where Americans, we don't eat great. And I think in general, we're trying to eat better. I think in general, the country is trying to clean things up, and restaurants are trying to clean things up. But the average person doesn't necessarily connect how what they put in their body is coming out in an emotional sense. And so there are so many foods that cause kids, we all know the red dye number 40 or whatever can cause behavioral issues. But if you think about, so many foods actually cause how you feel. And so here's just the big takeaway is, if you don't feel good, how can you act good? Right. And so whether it's the child or it's the parent, like if you feel you're not sleeping well, how can you be have your best day as a parent? If you're not eating well, obviously, if you're not managing your own stress, how can you be your best self as a parent? And then if you're not exercising, and I almost cringe hearing myself say that, but it's true. It's the science, right? And so it's kind of what we call, from the health coaching perspective, the modifiable lifestyle factors. So it's just diet, sleep, exercise, stress management. And then we always add on to that relationships. So if there are any toxic or unhealthy relationships that either you as the parent or your children are in, that needs to get fixed, right? And and so it's like that all affects how we are showing up. It's just like, if you think of yourself on a day, when you had kids and the baby finally like sleeps through the night and you're like, oh, I feel amazing. You're like, right. It's like, if you're like, have this like kind of high about that. It's like, imagine if you could live that way every day, if you're kind of doing all the right things. So that's my answer.
I agree. It's intentional living. It's not just going about your day, letting things happen to you. It's intentional living, intentionally cultivating these relationships with others, and intentionally working towards getting along with your teenager and teaching them and loving them. And I think it's all just intentional, and that's what we kind of have to be. Sometimes I think we get in this survival mode, and I know we've all been there. We've all lived in that and have had times where you just are in survival mode.
Yeah.
But if we're constantly in that, and our teens see that, they're going to be living in that. And so we need to model that for them too, I feel like. And so if someone wants to start small and start today, what's the first step that you would encourage them to take?
Ooh, as far as if they were the parent?
As the parent, what's the first step towards a lot of this that we've been talking about? Like what do you suggest they do? You talked about your course. We need to have them go look at that.
Yes. Because that really that's like my complete system. Like that's my model. But if there's just like one thing today to kind of improve their lives and the relationship with their teenager, my go-to response on this is comes from what I've heard from teenagers, which is they don't feel like their parents give a good response when they're talking. It's not a response that feels good or safe or help or right, whatever, for what there's many reasons, but and so therefore kind of teenagers either shut down, they lie, they hide things, they don't feel safe, they start to lack, they have a lot of self-doubt. And so the opposite of that to me is to create like a safety. But where I'm going with this is first is to kind of be okay with uncomfortable feelings. And so I think like if we just accept that up front, that there are, like you talked about that night where that chaos was happening. And I love how you guys just shifted and you went to the right thoughts. So you were having the right feelings, but there are feelings that sometimes it's because things are outside of our control and we're not able to shift our thoughts. And so, you know, our child feels sad or excluded or left out. And so then we're stressed and we're worried, right? And so first, if we just like accept, like, this is part of life. Sometimes this happens, right? Like, sadness is not the enemy here, right? Like, let's just let the sadness happen. But if we as parents could do something that could change today with our teenagers, it would be not try to fix it, allow the sadness to happen, but B, this is where the power is the empathetic statements. So I see you seem like you are really sad today. You seem like you're really anxious today. You seem really right. And we don't always know, but we guess the feeling. You seem really worried today. You know, is that like, what's going on? Is that right? And then this is the part where it opens up. Yeah, I'm really worried because I have this test tomorrow, blah, 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 all the stuff. Oh, well, that makes sense that you're feeling worried because you have this big test tomorrow. Yeah, that makes sense. And that's it, right? We stop there, right? We don't start going, did you study? Did you do this? Did you do that? All the things. We allow them to share their feelings. We validate their feelings. We acknowledge that that's a normal thing. And then, you know, if we want to take it a step further, what do you need from me right now? Do you need me to just listen to you vent for a minute? Do you need help strategizing on how you're going to study for that test? Like, how can I help? And sometimes it's just, I just needed to get that off my chest. Great. I feel like that is one of the most powerful and underused things. And I know this just because I taught a class and it was a room full of teenage girls, and they're all like, my mom says I'm too dramatic. My mom says I'm this. My mom says I'm that. Because the girls go home and they're like, you know, freaking out about friendships and drama and this and that and stress. And if the moms just knew how to like hold that space for them and allow them to say it, validate the feeling, empathize with the feeling, it would process through, and then we can move on. And then, you know, you said at the very beginning, resilience. And that is where the key to resilience is, because sometimes things happen. It doesn't feel good. We process it and then we move on. And once we know we can move on and recover, and then it's going to be okay. The more we do that, again, just like a practice, a muscle, it just gets stronger and stronger.
Oh, I agree fully. I think with my oldest, when she started with anxiety, I think I wanted to fix it and I wanted to help her like resist it. And rather than, you know, I did the complete wrong things because I didn't know better. But when you know better, you do better. So now in helping, instead of, I picture the ocean, and if you're trying to hold back the ocean waves, you're trying to hold back the ocean. You're not going to be able to do that. And instead, just stand there and let these emotions roll over you. Let them, if you're trying to hold it back, it's going to knock you over. But if you just allow it and allow it to just roll over you, you're just going to go with the waves and go with it. And so that's what I try to teach a lot with teens and really the parents. Allow them to feel these. Don't teach them to resist these feelings. Allow them to feel them and teach them how to get through them, because that's what's going to keep and create resilient kids, is not resisting these emotions. It's feeling them, processing them, validate them, and then allow them to work through them and know how to do that on their own. I think that's the key.
Yeah, I love it. Beautifully said. I love it. And that analogy of the ocean is perfect. I might, if it's okay, I might use that
Yes,
myself.
of course. Of course. Yes, we have. I want to go back and read a bunch of your stuff because I kind of dove in a little bit of some of your things that you have on your website, but you've got some amazing things and you've given me some other things I want to go research and look for and maybe I might have to have you back on again sometime. So, is there anything else that maybe I missed that you wanted to talk about today that you want to share?
I feel like we did a really wonderful job, to be honest, like covering all the things, because of course there's always more. The one thing, this is a message that I'm working on right now, and this is opening up a whole can of worms, but I can say it, I think, pretty concisely, is back to what you said about the thoughts. And so the motivational speech or keynote speech that I have been working on for months and months and months that I'm beginning to deliver, and I'm delivering to students in schools and assemblies, is called the Decider. And what that simply does is it puts the power back in the teenager's mind that they can decide. And my theme, my key kind of overarching theme is self-worth. And that we outsource our self-worth to other people. We think it's for sale, and it's really not. And the minute a person, whether it's an adult or a child, can decide and realize they have worth and value that's non-negotiable, it is what it is, that can open up so much and unlock so much, because even as parents, we are stuck in the trap and the rat race of trying to compete in the world. And that is a lose. We'll never lose. You can never win that game, right? And the only way to win it is to get out of it. And the only way, in my mind, to get out of it is to decide that you're not going to participate in that, and that just you have worth, you have value. And the most best version of you is the authentic, true self, not the one that's trying to get likes or whatever, all the stuff.
I love that. That's perfect. That is exactly what kids need to hear. And I love that you're going around and teaching this. And so I'll link your programs here. I do have a peaceful parent program, but I've only got 2 spots open right now. So I almost hate to say it because I don't know when and if, but right now there's 2 spots. So hopefully by the time this airs, there's still the 2 spots for it's called the Peaceful Parent Plan, that I kind of walk parents through a lot of stuff. And then yours is called, tell us again what yours is called.
It's called Cracking the Parent Code. And I do have a freebie if people want it. And so my website, which I know we're linking, is positivelyhealthycoaching.com. And if we do /5 tips, it'll give you the 5 tips to cracking the parent code. And then that'll send you a link to buy the course if anybody's interested.
Oh, I love it. Okay, we will link that below, and maybe if I can get it edited, and we'll maybe put it across here too for people to see. So I am so grateful that you were here today. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and your wisdom and all the things that you did with us today. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks for hanging out with me today on the Focus Podcast. If something stood out or helped you in some way, feel free to share it or leave a quick review. It means a lot. Keep showing up, keep growing, and I'll catch you in the next episode.